Ohio State and Notre Dame played last night for a national championship, Joe. We have recapped it once, but we're going to recap it again now that, I guess, better heads can prevail here. And we've been able to rewatch the game. It's been around a little bit less than 24 hours since we talked about it. But now that we've had time to go back, look at it, rewatch it, your thoughts about what happened last night in that game?
So I want to, like we did yesterday, I want to start with Ohio State, them being the victors again. They deserve the most recognition and credit for their performance. I think we kind of got lost in the yelling that we didn't spend as much time really applauding the amazing.
Talk about Notre Dame's side of things at all, by the way.
Right, yeah, because we were yelling too much. And that's why people love the show. I think the two biggest things that stood out to me, first of all, I want to backtrack comments I made about Will Howard. I was off base on him. I think that Will Howard's performance was the most important part for Ohio State's success. I was completely wrong when I rewatched this and I got to see, and again, with more of a level head, separate from being upset and frustrated from Notre Dame losing that game, his decision-making and execution paired with Chip Kelly's play calling, which I'm going to get to in a second, was so impactful on a snap-to-snap basis. If he was not able to make the correct read on a number of plays and to make it as efficiently as he did, I think a lot of those plays go very differently. There were instances where Notre Dame actually got some penetration. They were able to make some plays at the line of scrimmage, but the drives, especially in the first half, kept moving and progressing forward because he would adjust and the ball would get out quick and he would set up one of his receivers to make a couple of missed tackles and progress things further. That goes in line, though, with the other part about this. Chip Kelly straight up out-prepared Al Golden. I saw, and we lauded the game preparation for the Oregon game and the Tennessee game. I think that this preparation was even better. And I think that there's a lot that we can talk about this. He saw two extremely glaring weaknesses for Notre Dame that we discussed on this show, Blake. Notre Dame was banged up at their edge positions. Bubakar Traore and Jordan Botelho went down early in the season, and Penn State attacked it. Ohio State deliberately got the ball in space into the outside to Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, and it seems like there was a deliberate intention to say that if the first lane doesn't open up, cut back, and you're going to be able to find space. They also used a ton of misdirection, knowing that Notre Dame's linebacking core that's athletic but is extremely overly aggressive because they're young. They had a bunch of young guys, Drake Bowen, Kingston Viamawasa, that overly flowed. And then when there were these cutbacks, there was these misdirections, all of these things, it led to huge gains. Chip Kelly could not have called a better game. And I know that there's a little bit of frustration for how overly conservative he got in the second half, which I'm sure we're going to discuss a little bit. I thought that the way that they opened up was perfect. They couldn't have called a better game.
Discuss it. I mean, it's my biggest talking point, if I'm being honest, going back and rewatching it. You talked about Chip Kelly calling a great game, but it was simple.
Yes.
It was simple.
Yes.
Joe, think about this. 13 runs that they had last night. 13 of those runs are the misdirection under center counter play. From the first play on, they kept running it. I think that I can bring this up on Notre Dame, or I can bring it up now. Sometimes as a play caller, if something's working, continue to run it. And they kept running it all night long. Quinshon Judkins had the massive 70-yard run on it, and his touchdown run came on a counter. The Jeremiah Smith touchdown to start off their scoring drives was the play action fake counter or misdirection with him going into the flat, the fake reverse, and then throwing it to him in the flat. Joe, clearly they saw something on film that the linebackers flow extremely heavy, so we're going to misdirect him. And what a counter really is you're just trapping. All you're doing as an offensive lineman is blocking down and then catching the linebacker, catching the block. It's what you do when you don't think that your O-line can get pushed on zone stuff.
In which they weren't. To that point, they were actually struggling a little bit at times to get push, and it created so much freaking space, and ND was so spread out. That's a great way of putting it.
Bingo. And then you're catching the block, and you're going for, at points and times, literally the Judkins 70-yard run.
Yeah.
Sometimes in play calling, it's a little too simple. What was Notre Dame's best drive? Simplicity. Slant, hitch, fade. That's of all the plays that they connected on in the second half, I wrote it down. That's what you connected on. Okay? So I look at this and say, I do think that there are parts and times that you were out game planned. And I do think that they took the pedal off the metal. But, man, I got to keep coming back to this defense. Joe, I got to be real with you, man. I mean, they're all over the place. Do I think that there were times that they could have tackled better? Sure. But, man, quite frankly, okay, both lines of scrimmage did exactly what they needed to do to win this football game, in my humble opinion. Joe, think about this. On the offensive line side of things, very quickly, you had 214 rushing yards. The Emeka Egbuka fumble run, the reverse, isn't even counted in the statistics. So you would have had 224 rushing yards. That is absolutely insane. Like with a banged-up O-line. Now, this defense, man, I just can't get enough of it. I thought that they played really well through, let's just call it 45 minutes of the game. They gave up 7 points. And then the wheels kind of fell off a little bit. I just think that they've been the best defense all year. And they've struggled offensively, but defensively, I knew that they were going to stand up. Joe, this entire season for Ohio State, we saw them make goal line stands from the 1 yard line against Penn State, against Nebraska, against, I think it was, I forget who else it was. Wasn't it Texas? Yeah, it was Texas. What am I thinking about? The Jack Sawyer strip, because if you remember, they were second and goal from the 1, and they make another big stop. It's so wild to me that we look at sports, and especially college football, as, oh man, this, and this wins you football games. Well, no, running the football and playing really good defensively wins you championships. The monitor doesn't change. What did Georgia do really well? What did Michigan do really well? And quite frankly, even though they were beat up, Joe, they ran the football for 200-plus yards in a national title game. They ran when they needed to against Oregon. Teams that are playing really good defensively and running the football, Joe, they've won the last 4 national titles. And I could say 5 if I absolutely needed to. That is absolutely insane to me when you look and think about that. Joe, we got to go back to who's going to be the best defensively and who can run the football. I think Ohio State, of all the things that you did, all the portal additions that you had, man, playing good defensively, getting all those guys back, and then what you did last night. Joe, going back and rewatching the game, the running game, that's it. I mean, I can't come away from anything else, just how impressed I was in what they did in the running game.
So let me take this in an indirect angle, and of course this results in a shot being taken at Lane Kiffin. I think that to the way that you just described it is so clear that the path for success in this sport has the most to do with effective and almost dominant rushing attacks and just physical big bodies along the defensive line that are hard to get. In the top 15 teams in the country are able to attract defensive line talent enough that can be unlocked to be able to play at a high level if you have the right defensive coordinator. But I think that there is such a stark difference between the college game and the NFL game that is not discussed enough. I think that running backs matter way more, way more. Having 2 to 3 really good, more specifically 2 and at least 1 premier athlete running back, having those guys with a good offensive line is way more important to me than having the elite, big-armed, just dominant quarterback, because it is so hard to find a Joe Burrow. Trying to chase finding a Joe Burrow is an impossible task, and it will lead you astray. Instead, getting a Quinshon Judkins and a Jeremiah Love or a Travion Henderson, having those types of guys. Well, and Will Howard was important for that too. But I say this to say that Lane Kiffin, the rumor is he didn't feel that Quinshon Judkins was worthy of the money that he was asking for. And it feels like it comes from a very a very misguided approach that currently running back value is unimportant. I think in college
what was
football,
their biggest issue?
exactly the point. I think that if anything, this proves that there should be a stronger and more aggressive investment in teams to spend money at the running back position.
Let's go through 5 of them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first-round draft pick, had 1,400 yards. Was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Najee Harris, God bless it, Georgia's running back that got drafted. God bless it.
Oh man, this is gonna bug the crap out of me. What year? It was 2022.
2022. Regardless, they ran the ball at a very high rate. They're one of the best rushing teams in the country. And then you go to Michigan. You have Corbin. You have Edwards. And then this year, you have arguably one of the best duo running backs that we've seen on a team in history. That is the difference. I think that when it came down to it, even though Ohio State and the Michigan loss, it propelled them, man. It 100% propelled them to where they needed to go. That is the formula of winning right now in college football, and nobody was better at it in the country than Ohio State. No one, regardless of the beat-up offensive line or not. So you got to give them a lot of credit. Look, they got a lot that they have to replace, and I'm sure they're going to talk about. In reference to the game, Joe, I want to say this, though. There is a critique that I have. Man, they could have scored 49, 50 points in that. They could have scored 7 touchdowns in that game. If they don't take their foot off the gas. I cannot get over that Will Howard is 15 of 16 going into the first half, and then you don't utilize him at all throwing the football the entire second half. It is absolutely ridiculous to me. I know that you're trying to bleed the clock, but when you bleed the clock like that and you don't convert, bad things can and almost will happen to you. I think that I get it. I know Ohio State fans are really excited about winning a national title. They should be. It's over. This point of me critiquing doesn't really even matter to some extent. But there also is a thing that, like, dude, you threw the ball 6 times in the second half, and you were carving them alive. Joe, in the first half, we saw Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka run over a DB. Like, the talent level was different there. I'm sorry. They went freshman on freshman, and you could have even just given them quick passes. At least get them touches. Like, stop running your head into a wall. It did not bite them in the ass, but, man, it could have. I
don't completely agree with this part of it, and I understand the questioning that, why.
Passes, though?
I said this yesterday, I'm of the belief that when you're in a situation and you're up 31-7, and you're having as much success as you are running the ball, that you should be able to just lean on that and bleed down the clock. Notre Dame counter-adjusted so effectively that they were able to get the stops that they needed and get the forced fumble that they had when they needed it. I just think it's really risky at times to put the ball in the air. You were throwing the ball amazingly, perfectly. But against a team that generates turnovers the way that they do, all it took was one batted ball to give them a short field. Fumbling the way that they did, I think that it obviously gave Notre Dame the ball back, but they had to march all the way down the field, and it took a ton of time off the clock and yada, yada, yada. I'm not the biggest fan of trying to throw the ball when you're up by that much, because
the argument in that, I got to stop you, because the fade route to Jeremiah Smith won him the national title game. It put the last nail in Notre Dame's coffin.
Yeah, but you're supposed to just keep calling plays like that, and I don't know if it's like a guarantee.
Can I tell you why?
All convert.
Well, can I tell you why? The dude was 15 of 16. If he would have struggled, if he would have been a little off or just above average, yeah, okay, I'm with you. I understand that. He wasn't above average. Joe, for what it's worth, he's 15 of 16. And then you're running him, which I don't hate. I don't hate you running him. But then on 3rd and longs, that's when you're asking him to convert. It's not fair to him. It's not as if that Will Howard wasn't absolutely snapping necks and cashing checks out there. Like, I'm with you on 31-7. I don't really have an argument to that. It's 31-15 in the third quarter, and you can go put the game away. You have 2 drives to go and do it, and you can't.
Yeah, but like imagine how much of a momentum shift that would have been for Notre Dame if
it happened anyway.
But yeah, they got the fumble that they did, but like if they got a pick and they had room to return it, again, I understand.
You can't play.
I understand the argument. I know that, but it's not playing. It's not playing scared.
It's playing scared. It's to me. It's playing scared because you know what? If I would have lost it, I could have said that, hey, man, the dude literally is completing 90% of his passes. So what?
But they didn't end up losing it because that they knew that they could turn to throwing those types of routes to Jeremiah Smith. If they had no success running the ball, Blake, I'd totally get this conversation. But they were picking up huge chunks of yards on certain plays. I didn't think that they got away from it so much. Again, I think it's a bit of a, you brought it, the bigger key here is it's a little bit of a moot point because they still were able to win. They were still able to rely on Jeremiah Smith because they knew that eventually if they needed to throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith, that they just could toss him the rock and it would be important for them to convert.
I guess. Let's get to Notre Dame because we haven't.
Okay.
Last night I got one sentence in and then my head got bit off.
No.
My head got bit
It was mutual. It was mutual.